All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Monday, August 12th, 2024 Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee. First off, we're going to start with public comment. And we have one person online and one person here in the chambers. So I'm going to just start, review the rules real quick. I agree to a 3-minute time limit. I agree not to raise my voice. I agree to not use lewd, obscene, profane, slanderous, or libelous language, or speak or act in a manner that would tend to incite a breach of the peace. I agree not to speak about county personnel matters. Personnel matters include comments about the job performance of named county employees other than elected officials. After 3 minutes, I agree to leave the microphone and yield the floor. Transferring time to another person is not permitted. I agree to be courteous and not make comments, gestures, outbursts, or other disruptions while other members of the public or legislators are speaking. I agree that if I cause a disruption and I am asked to leave, I will leave the chambers. So thanks for bearing with me as I read all of that. And we have, let's see, is it Diana or Diane? Diana. Yeah, so Diana Cole, would you like to come to the microphone over there? Welcome.
Thank you. Is it on? Can you hear me?
Rob.
Is that okay?
Oh, there we go.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm here on behalf of Ithaca's Gorgeous and wanting to keep it that way. I'm a native Ithacan and very, very passionate about our environment. I feel very privileged to have lived here most of my life. What I'm here about today in particular is the amount of signage that has been going up in the past year. I don't know if other people have noticed along the highways and even in the countryside, especially, and I live on Coddington Road, there are more and more large signs that are, I believe, are very unnecessary and detract from our beautiful countryside. I've already gone to the highway director. He took down 2 signs, and then he would not meet with me about further signage. Then I went to the town supervisor, who also tried to give me some sort of leeway as far as the law, but would not meet with me. And then I've also emailed Dan Klein, and he thought, I guess for him, it was not an issue. So that's why I'm here today. I've actually brought a couple pictures to really show how dynamic this is. One is on Burns Road, and it has a sign for Burns Road and Weedmeyer Court. Weedmeyer Court is actually a dead end. And if you want to look at the picture, you can see that it's just around the corner, and there's very good signage on those roads. That is just one example. Another one is, and there's tons of them, but this was, I thought, incredibly dynamic, which is at Judd Falls Road, that huge sign, and as you can see, and I'll pass it around, the sign for the actual road is right about 100 feet away from it. So I'm just asking for you to review this and the importance of it in preserving our beautiful environment. Yeah. I'm also very impassioned. I'm a volunteer for the Finger Lakes Land Trust, but I'm not representing anybody but myself. And I'm also an Adopt a Highway volunteer. I'm also a marriage and family therapist who's still in practice. So I'm really passionate about this. I don't know whether my 3 minutes are up or not. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Diana. And if you would like to pass those around, you can pass them right there, and we'll look at them and get them back to you. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And online, we have former county legislator, former county chair, Martha Robertson. Welcome, Martha.
Hi, Annie. Hello, everybody, and thanks very much for taking a few minutes. I wanted to congratulate Haley Delisle on the excellent report and presentation on navigating electrical outages. You're going to be looking at this later in the meeting. I'm a member of the CASE board, the Climate and Sustainable Energy Board. Haley reported and explained this whole report to us back in June. So I'm pleased to see the report. I wanted to mention a couple things. One is I worry about making it sound like electrification makes us more in danger, puts us at more risk. I think it's outages, electrical outages are kind of binary. I mean, if you don't have electricity, your fossil fuel furnace won't work. The gas station pumps won't work, even if you have, if you have an electrical outage. So it's not like electrification is going to suddenly change everything and make us more at risk. So I'm a little concerned about that theme or that sense in this report. I wanted to mention a couple of the actions that are cited. Action 3, I love the idea of expanding the Business Energy Advisors Program to help businesses prepare for outages and prevent them. I like the idea in Action 8 of multifamily buildings of hoping to reduce reliance on external shelters. I think a lot of people are just not going to leave their home to go to the library, to go to an emergency shelter or something. So it's really better if those apartment buildings actually have spaces that people can go to that'll be cooler or warmer during energy outages. But the bottom line is I really want to ask, what's the utility's responsibility? This is, it seems to me, a fundamental piece of this issue. Utilities are monopolies. They're regulated, but they're monopolies. It's their responsibility to provide us with safe power. And I really am concerned that this is, the taxpayers, the ratepayers shouldn't be accepting this responsibility to such a degree. To that end, there's a public hearing on Wednesday, 2 days from now, August 14th, at the Ithaca Conference Center, the new all-electric conference center on Green Street, at starting at 11 o'clock. The subject is actually NYSEG's plan for preparing for and responding to extreme weather conditions brought on by climate change. The state legislature required all the utilities to produce such a plan, and NYSEG's plan is really inadequate. I can send information. I think actually Annie has this information also from a case meeting that we had on this. NYSEG only looks at their current load. They're not looking at future load growth and how they should address it. And they really kind of basically said, we're good. We only have to change a couple little things in our substations, and then we'll be covered till 2050. I think it's a wholly inadequate plan, and I plan to be there at the hearing this Wednesday. I think there is no need to sign up. People can just go, and usually elected officials get to go at the beginning of such a hearing. So in case you want to put it on your calendar, you can probably expect to be able to get in and out fairly quickly. So thanks very much. Happy to listen to Haley's discussion and your discussion later on the topic. Thanks.
Thank you, Martha. Okay, next up, are there any proposed changes to our agenda for today? Okay, and so now we have the minutes approval, and this is from June 10th, 2024. Would someone like to move them? Let's see, it was close. Moved by Amanda, seconded by Veronica. Any questions, comments? We had a couple small things already. I would say they're manifest changes, just making sure Nate Bates' title is in there, and change for the gallons, the leachate gallons from gallons to 1,000 gallons that Leo pointed out. Anything else? Okay, all those in favor? That's unanimous, great. And for Chair's report, the only thing I have today is looking at our October and November peak meetings. As it turns out, they are both on holidays. So glad we have a bunch of folks here. So even if you're not formally on the committee, if you're not a legislator, feel free to chime in if the dates we're talking about are going to work. I'm trying to see if Greg, and I forgot to mention, Greg was unable to join us today, so he's excused from today's meeting. And so he did text back, he can do these 2 dates. So these are the 2 dates and times, and Randy, were those okay with you?
For October?
They're October and November.
You give me 4 dates, so the dates are okay with me, are 10,
They're dates, and then the time is next to it. Veronica, can you help him look at that?
Oh, okay.
So what we're looking at right now is
10:15 works for me.
October 15th, 11 to 1. That one works. And then the second one is November 13th, 10 to 2.
That 10 to 2?
Right.
That's 4 hours.
Oh, 10 to, let's say 10 to 12.
Okay, that works. That works.
I guess that little one matters. Even a little number matters.
That does work.
And
Norma?
so that date, just so, that's also a department head meeting day as well.
The 13th?
Yes, of November.
Okay.
So there might be a few department heads that it might conflict with their meeting.
Okay, so the next, how about for November, how about the 14th, 12 to 2?
It works for me.
Okay, that's the one we'll probably go with. I do have to check with Greg, but that's the one that we'll probably go with. 12 to 2 on the 14th is what we're looking at? Okay. So October 1 is changed to October 15th, 11 to 1. Only 2 hours, not 4, as Randy pointed out. That's what we usually have. And the November 14th, 12 to 2.
Question about, is there any follow-up to me, or how is the follow-up to me?
It's up to the group if there's going to be follow-up here or possibly later. It also,
I'm happy to follow up if it won't be in this meeting.
Yeah.
You emailed the legislature previously, right? About this issue, I think? I don't think I understand what you're saying. Did you email the well, I need your contact info to follow up with you, right? So.
Veronica?
Yeah?
I do have her email address.
Great.
Yes.
I'll follow up with you by email then. Thanks.
thank you. Thanks, Veronica. And so next, we're moving on to the county administrator's report. We have Norma Jane, our deputy county administrator. Do you have a report, or you want to move right on to the PAR forms?
We have, just to let you know that we're busily working on the budget, and yeah, we can just move into the PAR forms. I don't have any further report.
Okay, great. So these are project approval review. And before you get into them, I'm just going to ask one quick question. There's reference in several of them, and LTD?
Yes, that's life to date, so.
Life to
Yeah.
date, okay. If you see that mentioned in the columns in the charts. So maybe other folks knew that, but I didn't. Thank you. So that starts on packet page 7. Would you like to? And there's 2 sets in here. Accidentally, there's 2 sets of PAR forms. So we'll go through one set.
Sure, and I know that Leo can answer questions about these. I will say that the first one, 81.61 RSWC upgrades, this is just an ongoing project, and it's almost at it's almost ending. So really, this didn't need to be included this year. There's a little bit of funding that's still left for 2025. So unless folks have direct questions about the project itself, it's really just kind of finalizing or coming to completion in 2025.
Thank you.
Any questions on that one? Okay.
The 8747 Natural Infrastructure Project, this project was funded and has a little over $1 million. Folks from planning can answer questions directly about this in the fund balance. We did not fund it last year, and we don't recommend funding it for the next couple of years, just based on the amount of money that's sitting in the fund presently. And but it is on the schedule in 2027 to begin adding funding to that project again. In 2027, when you're looking at the full capital project, that's kind of where things start to level off a little bit. Some of the projects are getting paid for by then, assuming we don't add a lot more between now and then.
So that explains why on the charts it's 2024, and then there's it skips a couple of years until 2027.
Correct.
Okay, any questions on this one? Veronica?
Sorry, I may have missed it. Can you explain just how the funding streams work for this project? Because this is a whole fund for various projects, right? So it doesn't work quite the same as some of the other power forms, which are for like a specific infrastructure
Right.
project that's defined from the get-go.
Yes, and I know the folks here from planning can answer those questions a lot better than I can, so I will, if one of you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I guess, let me tack on the other question, is this, am I to read this,
You can leave them, and we can.
this graph as that there is like about 1.4 million sitting in a fund right now that's available to be used, or has some of that already been spent? Okay.
That is what's available, and the reason that the recommendation came to not fund it most likely until 2027. And so how the projects are funded through this power form are the proposals you've seen me bring before, say projects from natural infrastructure, from like Finger Lakes Land Trust and organizations like that. And under project description there, you'll see those are the guidelines, and those are the guidelines those projects must meet. They go through internal review in our department. We bring them to the Planning Advisory Board, and they're reviewed and approved there to be sent on here to this committee. This committee reviews those projects, recommends them to go into the full legislature, and that's how that funding gets released.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
Okay, and the last one is the landfill site improvement project, and I'm not even going to pretend to understand what Leo knows about this project, but I will say this is a new project. It has not been, this is the first time it's coming through the committee and the legislature. This will likely go out for a bond, and I will let Leo answer questions about the project itself.
Any questions about the project? So this is packet page 11, the landfill site improvement, PAR form. Randy?
Can you talk about it a little bit, Leo, or?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I think this committee has been fairly engaged with some of the issues we've experienced this past spring with, spikes in volumes, and of course the price increase at the wastewater treatment plant. So also this project is kind of on the heels of a leachate collection system assessment that was done, I believe, in August of 2023. The life expectancies of those systems are roughly 30 years, and we're at or near those 30 years for both Hillview closed landfill and Caswell. The leachate collection systems up there, there's large tanks, there's piping, there's valves that control being able to shut off leachate into those tanks. And everything needs to be cleaned. First and foremost, part of this project will be a tank cleaning. The conveyance lines will be cleaned. We know there's one large valve that needs to be replaced at Caswell that shuts off the leachate to those tanks, so the tanks can be cleaned. There'll be tests performed on the tanks, tightness testing, and the system to check for leaks. And then on the heels of some of the spikes in our volume at Caswell, you'll remember that under our new current permit with Ithaca Wastewater Treatment Plant, they're limiting us to a maximum of 3 trailer loads a day that comes out of Caswell. So our volumes have peaked at 3 loads a day in the spring. So we have some concerns if we can't find a home, for that material to be treated that day. We are looking at temporary tank storage, which is simply an above-ground tank that would go in where we would relieve some of the volume in the in-ground tanks to the above-ground tank. Now, in order to do that, we need electric service run out there. So this project includes running that service to the leachate tanks. And then we're also looking at remote monitoring of those tanks, so we can see the levels of leachate in the tanks from our desk or our phones.
You'd add pumps too then?
I'm sorry?
So then you have to add pumps too to?
Yes, yes, exactly. So we currently have a contractor that in those peak seasons, which is primarily the spring, they'll go there every day to check those tanks. And if they could go there and not have to haul the material. But with that said, we may be able to reduce that cost just by having the remote monitoring in there. It'll certainly reduce some costs for my department. Peak season, we could have a person out there every couple days checking on tanks and the volumes when it's heavy. So. And then there is, in 2027, we have budgeted for the capital to replace one tank, whether it's at Caswell or Hillview. Because where we sit today, until we have some tightness testing done and a good internal kind of evaluation of those tanks, we don't know the condition. So one new leachate tank is budgeted in that project.
Randy?
I have a few questions. So is the majority of the liquid that's going to leachate, is it because of rainwater or snow melt? Is it just the water that's going through through it all and ending up, how many feet below are the collection areas? Do you know?
I don't know in feet. The collection areas are around the perimeter of the landfill. It's the stormwater, rainwater. It's important that one of the things that we do, we manage vegetation up there, to soak up some of the water and the runoff, but. Yeah, it's, our leachate, after a landfill's been closed for, probably close to 30 years now, that leachate is a fairly weak leachate. That's why we were all pretty surprised that, that there was a thought of some issues at the wastewater treatment plant causing some disturbances for them, which, It turned out that it wasn't an issue, but nonetheless, yeah, there's certainly some things that we could kind of resurface and take a look at. I think 2017 roughly, there was, we looked at a study up there for an on-site treatment. At the time, it didn't really prove to be a benefit economically to the county. But considering some of the increases that we've incurred earlier this year, it wouldn't hurt to resurface that again and take a look at that.
Thank you. And as far as the cost of this, does this all run through the recycling and your entity? And we'd bond through the entity as well? Is that how that would work?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
So the county bonds for the enterprise fund, but the enterprise fund pays that bill.
Okay. And then my last question. So we're hoping, and I know we're going to get an update on solar for that Caswell. Is there any way to, when those panels, if they are installed, could a drainage system for surface water be implemented at the same time to stop the water from filtering down into the landfill? So the water would run off into clean water would run off into a different area?
I would just say Terry has some pretty significant updates on that site, so maybe we could wrap that into when Terry presents on that.
Great, okay.
Any other questions on that part? Amanda?
So 3 truckloads a day is what they're saying. Are there other plants or places that you could take additional?
When in the spring, when we were exploring some of those options, we didn't have a lot of luck getting anyone to accept it. They usually don't have a problem accepting material from us probably anywheres except for in that peak season. I think probably all the treatment plants deal with the same issue with larger volumes, yeah. But when we need it in the spring during those high volume peak season, it's can be difficult. So we don't experience the issue at Hillview landfill. It's just at Caswell. Caswell does have smaller leachate tanks, so we'll probably take that in consideration when after the internal kind of inspection with that tank up there to determine a size. But if we were to replace them, we would probably increase the size of those in-ground tanks. But I think a above-ground tank makes perfect sense if we needed it.
Yeah.
And I just had one question since we're on that topic. Are you still looking at an alternate facility to accept the leachate?
We are, yes. I mean, we would like to find something, but we worked our way from Ithaca out, and we were as far as Niagara Falls, as far as contact and locations. Yeah. So I don't know what the chances of that is, but would the wastewater treatment plant take it if we needed them to? I would hope so. I would hope something could be worked out with them. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So a lot of information on that. Anything else for the PAR form from either of you, Norma or Leo? Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And so next up, Leo, you're up next with for the Department of Recycling Materials Management. Before we get into it, since we were talking about landfills, Legislator Champion had brought up a while back about a possible tour of a landfill. And I can't recall now, were you thinking about an active landfill or one of the county's closed ones?
Yeah, thanks. I was thinking an active landfill. I've never been to one, and I thought it would be educational. And I sent an email, and then I went on vacation, and then life got in the way, so I haven't followed up. But yeah, I thought it would be interesting, and I'm willing to reach out to folks to try to set that up. But I thought, you know, to bring Leo and Kat in on it if you have insight or thoughts or assistance in trying to set that up.
Yeah, well, that could go for active or inactive if anybody's interested in, you know, seeing the leachate. You know, not a lot to see with the leachate collection system at our closed landfills because it's all underground, but if that would help to get a visual, I could certainly arrange that. And also, yeah, we can arrange a tour. You know, I would suggest it'd be easier for us, the ones that we're permitted or actively using, which is Ontario County or Chemung landfill. I think that would be easier for us to arrange.
Okay. And I know September and October are pretty busy for folks, but maybe later in the fall, I don't know. If other people want to go, or if there's a thought on, you know, timing from your side.
Is that something other committee members are interested, or other staff? Anybody interested in seeing an active landfill? Yes?
I'd like to see how our plastics and whatnot are processed that we're sending to places, and like the one sort system they have, where how do they manage the stuff that we send to them? That'd be cool to see.
So that'd be the materials recovery facility, the processing of our recyclables, in addition to landfill. So if we went to Ontario County, we could possibly see both.
Yeah.
So that's where our recycling's going. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my initial thought was like to see the actual operation of where they put the garbage in. Because that's all our garbage, you know, so. But the processing of the recycling too would be interesting.
Yeah, not sure the best way to approach that. I mean, just, you want me to just shoot for
How about
September?
late October, maybe, something like that.
October?
Yeah, maybe I could do a doodle poll of this committee to start there, and then if other legislators wanted to come, like, if we could narrow down to like 1 or 2 dates that we could give to you,
Yep.
that would maybe make sense. Does that work?
Sure, we could ask at the next legislature meeting too, anybody else that wants to be included. Does any staff want to be included? Maybe, so we could include. Yeah.
All right, well, then I'll include you on the doodle poll, and we can, try to narrow it down.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thanks for remembering to bring that up, Annie.
Thank you. I know it's hard when people are busy and stuff, and I keep putting it on a list going, I have to keep remembering to ask Amanda about that.
Yeah.
So next up, do you have an overall report, Leo, or do you want to go into the commodity revenue?
Yeah, I think we go right into the commodity, the ACR, or the average commodity revenue. I know this committee has,
I'm just going to interrupt, packet page 21 and 22, if folks are following along in the agenda. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I know this committee had to listen to me when things were really poor. ACRs in the 20s. So again, the ACR, average commodity revenue, is basically all of our single stream materials, whether it's paper, cardboard, glass, tin, plastic, what we sell that for, averaged out per ton, and then the county receives a revenue share of that with the processor. So June of 2024, I think we were right in the neighborhood of $83 a ton. That's I refer to the 14-month trend graph, and you can kind of see where we've been back from May of 2023 to where we stand today, and it's always nice to see that that line trend upward. If you look at the other one, the chart where I've got 2021, 2024, you can, I kind of like to compare 2023 to 2024. You can see our budgeted ACR per ton. 2023, we had budgeted 105. For 2024, we budgeted $84 a ton on average annually for the year. 2023, our actual that we came in at $44 a ton. That was a pretty sad picture there. I'm projecting that we'll probably land right around $80 per ton this year. And that's projecting some continued increases in the ACR from where it is right now. And I like to throw in the actual total revenue just to give you, an idea of what really even just a couple of bucks on the ACR does for the whole total revenue. So, and I presented this in the same fashion as I presented the last one, just to maybe get you looking at the same thing every time and understanding it a little bit better. But I'll continue to plan to update quarterly.
This is really helpful, Leo, to have the graph and the chart. So it looks like you're about projected to be down about $40,000 almost for the revenue for that.
Yep, yeah, we would consider that to be pretty much on budget.
On budget or below budget?
$40,000.
Below your projected?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot closer than where we were sitting last year.
Where you were thinking, yeah.
Yeah.
Any questions on this? Comments? Okay, and then there's a capital summary provided. Did you want to say anything about that, or just open it up and see if there's questions?
Yeah, you can just open it up, I would say, yeah.
Okay, any questions on the capital summary? We have packet page 24 and 26. Okay. Anything else that you have, Leo, or from the group? Anybody have anything else? Randy?
Yes, Leo, I think I heard that you'd met with Finger Lakes Reuse more than once probably on programs you're working with them on. I'm on their finance committee, and so I get reports on the activities there. And their biggest problem is they get too many donations. So what's happening is that they're rejecting more and more product that may be able to be recycled because they just can't handle the volume. I mean, they're literally 150 people a day are bringing truckloads of stuff to them. So I didn't know if you guys had that discussion or if there's any thoughts on how we can make it easier for the public to return things that can be reused, or maybe a one-stop shop type thing, or any of your thoughts you guys have on that?
Well, we have met actually probably a couple of times with Diane. I know she definitely struggles with the volumes that she gets down there. I know we kick around a lot of thoughts and a lot of ideas. I mean, the one thing that our department's focused on right now is putting together a RFP for reuse services in the county. So this will be the first time that we're going out to procurement for those services. We're being directed to do that, and understandably. So that's our challenge right now, is to really just kind of work through, what it is exactly we want to procure as far as those services. And I think the infrastructure, just their presence and them being here and doing what they're doing is certainly important, and we've just got to figure out how to put that down on paper. So then that's where we're at with that, and we're hoping to have that out on the street probably within a couple of months, so it'll be set to go January 1st with them.
to go out to solicit requests or people to respond to the RFP, you mean? And so then it would be up by January 1 or be later in the year?
Well, we hope to have it on the street. We usually have something like that on the street for at least a month. You know, so whether it's Diane or anyone else putting a proposal together, you know, for those services. I know we're actually meeting with Barb Ekstrom to get her thoughts because you know, again, it's the first time we're putting that proposal together. So you know, we kind of know in our minds what we're looking for, but to work from a blank sheet of paper is often kind of difficult too, but I think we'll get there. I know the Finger Lakes reuse, and there's a number of other reuse entities in the county that you know that do a great job, and we want to make sure that, you know, we're being fair right across the county with everybody, and yeah, but we're kind of just getting out of the gate with it, Randy. So yeah, I'm not sure what else to say about it, but yeah.
No, I think it's really important to do it, without a doubt. How would that process work? Would that RFP come through this committee for us to give our comments on it, or how does that work? I just have 2 cents, probably more than once, to provide, so I wanted to give my insight on it. And I mean, I've been in that business for 20 years, and I think the way it's processed is the most important thing to do. So if you don't determine that when it comes to whoever it comes to, and how it's processed and how you get the most bang for your buck of everything in that vehicle or whatever, or garbage truck, whatever, is evaluated at the very beginning, you'll never get to where you want to end up. So I made that very simplistic. It's more complicated than that, but it's, I just wanted to know if I could add my 2 cents at some point. So
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I'd kind of look to you. This is a unique RFP, certainly. It's not like contracting out for processing recyclables or contracting out for curbside collection. So it is unique. And, you know, as I say, I'll take all the help I can get with putting it together. I don't think we've had a proposal that we've put together that's come to the committee prior to it going out on the street. So I don't know if I'm really the one to answer that question, but what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't see why. I mean, you could certainly share it for review, give a short timeline, because these do it. We've been waiting, this has to go out soon. But you could send it out once it's drafted for folks to take a look at and be able to provide comment within, you know, a week or something like that.
Yeah.
Via email.
Yeah.
that works.
Could be.
Yeah, but generally it doesn't come to committee for review, no.
Can you explain what exactly the RFP is for?
Broadly, reuse services in Tompkins County. You know, again, I know when we look at other procurements that are somewhat related, like food scraps recycling, you know, we feel as though it's important that the infrastructure is local here. You know, it cuts down on transportation. Transportation's, from a cost standpoint, is just huge. I mean, the further you go with anything, the more you pay. So, yeah, I mean, it could be, and I'm just kind of talking out loud here, but, you know, retail space, retail floor space, square footage, you know, it could be broken down by certain materials or categories of reuse, whether it's construction materials or household items, furniture. Yeah, we're in the early stages of putting things down on paper. I mean, we know what Finger Lakes Reuse and others do for us in the county and do for, you know, constituents, but we're just starting to put it down on paper. I wish I had a little more information for you.
Okay, well, we'll see that via email. Any other questions or comments on that?
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Leo. And we'll switch over to the Department of Planning and Sustainability, and we have the commissioner here, Katie Brigella. Do you have a report or want to say anything before we get into the topics?
I do have a report for you today, just
Great.
2 items. I wanted to let you know that we wound up applying for a non-agricultural, non-point source planning grant for a comprehensive stream corridor assessment study for Fall Creek. You might recall we did this last year. We applied for this same pot of money for 6 Mile Creek. We were awarded the money. We still haven't gotten a contact from the state yet to start work on that, but it seemed like a good fit for studies we wanted to do. We applied for $75,000. There's no cash match. Darby's time working on it can be applied to be the in-kind match for the grant. So if we are awarded this funding, then we would have 2 of our major streams studied to look for opportunities for stream bank stabilization, riparian buffer restoration, floodplain reconnection, and any kind of culvert replacement or repair that might be necessary. So we feel that this is important for both flood risk and just water quality. So I wanted to let you know we put in for that. And then another one, I'm glad Terry and Haley are here to take any hard questions you might have, but we did send in a letter June 20th, and between timing of that and not having peak meeting in July, that's why the delay, letting you know. But we looked at the county comprehensive plan and the county's energy strategy and sent in comments on the long-term gas system plan that NYSEG and RG&E has proposed to the Public Service Commission. We highlighted some problems that we saw with their proposal, namely that they were not planning to comply with the New York Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, which is something that our county has been very committed to. We've put a lot of money and effort into doing that. So we highlighted that as a concern. And also, they were proposing not including cold climate capable heat pumps as a whole building solution, and instead they were going to be promoting non-cold climate heat pumps with dual fuel solution that would continue the use of natural gas, which is something the legislature has said they would like to not see as much of in the future. So it didn't really make sense to us, so we highlighted that for the PSC as well. And also an independent group called the Charles River Associates put out a study of the report and really looked closely into the assumptions and data used, and that report highlighted several areas where it appeared to have faulty assumptions and flawed data. And so we called that out and just requested that the PSC examine the factual basis for the claims and make adjustments if there are errors found in the modeling that was done by NYSEG and RG&E. That's my report, but got the experts here if you have further questions.
Thank you. I just had a quick one. You said you applying for the non-ag, non-point source, the stream corridor for the Fall Creek area. Was that, excuse me, so that you've applied for that, it hasn't been awarded yet?
Yeah, that was just part of the CFA at the end of July.
Okay.
So we won't hear about that till late fall, probably.
Okay, so that'll take a while to, we'll hope you have good luck with that. Amanda?
Can I ask about a different topic? Do you have thoughts or opinions on the state's response about the Owasco Lake rules and regulations that you can say publicly?
Most of
Remember, no lewd?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's just for public speakers. Go ahead.
I mean, mostly I feel terrible for Cayuga County, who has spent a huge amount of staff time trying to develop ways to improve the water quality in that lake, and to have it dismissed wasn't great. Yeah, and I think it's been disheartening to our Water Resources Council as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else for Katie? Okay, Terry Carroll, you're going to give us an update on the Caswell Solar project or non-project, or?
Yeah, I wish I was coming with better news. You know, we've been working on this project for a couple of years now, and things were heading in a pretty positive direction. But, you know, in the last month, we've run into a couple of stumbling blocks, and the main barrier right now to the project is that it's been determined that the interconnection to the grid in that location is just too expensive, and the state has decided to not move forward with continuing to develop the project. So, you know, a lot of money has already been spent, a lot of staff time, or money on the state side, not so much on our end. But, you know, and a lot of staff time, though, on our end from recycling materials management and the planning department. You know, at the end of the day, the ratepayers are responsible for whatever projects get approved, and NYSERDA felt like this wasn't something that they could put before the Department of Public Service and then get approved and put that burden on the ratepayers. It's, you know, hugely disappointing, I think. It also highlights some of the issues that New York State is running into. You know, this was a project that's on a closed landfill, on a brownfield, you know, the exact sort of location you want to see solar developed on so that it doesn't go on to agricultural land. So it's just disappointing that there wasn't the will to kind of keep pushing forward with it. So, you know, we looked at a couple of routes that would, you know, possibly make it cheaper, and it just, for the size of the project and what it was being proposed at that point, it just, the state decided that it wasn't feasible. There's a small sliver of sunlight within this that, you know, we're talking with the Build Ready team at NYSERDA and seeing if we were to trim down the project and turn it into what are called two CDG projects, basically two community solar projects, that there might be a possibility to get the utility to jump in and take on more of the costs. And so they're going to drum up some plans around that. We're going to try and talk with the utility to see if we can get some interest in it. Next year is a rate case year. They'll want to have the county on their side if they can. So it's possible that this could even get filtered into a rate case. But as it stands right now, we're not moving forward with anything with Caswell. So the lease option agreement, I believe, is still in effect for a couple of years. So if something changes, if a federal program suddenly becomes available to do this and we can go after it with the state, you know, I think that option's still available. But for right now, it doesn't look like it's going to move forward, unfortunately.
So if there was community solar projects, though, they would be much smaller in scale.
Yeah, so the hope there would be, the plan right now was to basically run the interconnection up through a neighbor's land to the north, and then over to the Peruville substation. It would take a lot of infrastructure improvements at that substation and just a lot of wiring, essentially, to get to that point. If we were to do two smaller community distributed generation sites, community solar, the hope is that they might be able to tap into existing lines with minimal upgrades, so not necessitating the same level of upgrades at the substation, which is really driving a lot of the costs. So that's the possibility that we're looking at right now. You know, one of the big issues that we run into in New York State with interconnection is that the first site that moves in and decides to build in a solar project is responsible for the cost to upgrade the substation. And so if this project moved forward and the substation was upgraded, it would potentially open up other areas for development to then tie into that substation. But none of those other sites would share in the cost, you know, so there's that it's first mover's disadvantage, essentially. You know, you set up that site, you improve it for everyone else, but you bear the entirety of the cost. And that's something that NYSERDA has been looking to try and fix, along with the NYSO and the Public Service Commission, and it seems that it still isn't fixed quite yet.
Thank you. Any other questions? Randy?
Just a comment. I know another project was proposed in Newfield, and its proximity to the substation is key to what they're doing, and I imagine that's probably going to be the case for most places.
Yeah, I think in almost every case, folks are looking to try and get as close to the substation as possible. And even in this project, we're not far from the substation. We're within a mile, but it's still expensive, and that substation is just not at the capacity. So some of it is being close to a substation, but it's also what is the capacity of that substation? How much infrastructure is already in place there?
Just for your reference, it's on Millard Hill Road again.
Okay.
In that area where they've already upgraded all that, so, yeah.
Yeah, so that's that exact place where, Delaware River Solar, I think, was the one that did the first projects there, and they did some of the upgrades, and it opens it up to others to come in.
Thank you, Terry. Okay, next we have Darby Kiley, and this is the update on packet page 30. It's the update on round 2 of the 2024 Municipal Parks and Trails Grant Program. Hi, Darby.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, coming to you from Pruville Road and just downhill from the Caswell. And just wanted to come in and give you the update from our second round of the Parks and Trails Grant Program. We did have an earlier round that ended in April, and I gave an update on that in May. And then we reopened it because we still had money left, and had 2 more applications come in for Town of Lansing and Town of Ulysses. So those are both sent in and approved. They met the guidelines and they got what they requested. There is still about $8,000 left in the account, and we hadn't planned on reopening it, but we would take guidance from you guys if you think there's some more interest out there. We just pretty much have had this open since about March and haven't had any other questions from other municipalities, but just wanted to provide an update and get any guidance if you had some.
Amanda.
Question, I guess, for Norma. What happens to that leftover money if it doesn't get used in grants? Or maybe Darby.
Well, it depends on if it's grant funding, it'll depend on what the stipulations of the grant are. So
It just goes back to the general fund.
okay, so it does not have to be returned. Yeah, that's if it doesn't have to go back, then it's going to go to the
Not
general
grant
fund.
funded, we give grants from legislature
Yeah, it'll go back to the
allocation.
general fund.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Andy?
Yes, thanks, Darby. If you could just give maybe a printout summary of all the grants that were provided this year, I'd appreciate it at some point.
Yeah, I can send you the memo that was in the May packet as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Well, I just want to address that. So Darby said that you didn't think there was maybe an appetite to do another round, but you were wanting feedback from this group?
Yeah, if you guys had any strong direction to give us, I think what we run into this time of year is trying to get contracts executed before the end of the year. By opening around, having it open for a couple months and just getting contracts executed before the end of the year, it could get tight. And also, I'm not sure how much interest there is from other municipalities who have not applied. Haven't heard from any of the others, just that they, if there's a timing issue or that kind of thing. So I don't know if any of you have, I'll say Randy, Town of Newfield did not apply for anything. So I don't know if you know of anything that might be in the works out there.
I've made him aware of it.
Amanda?
Right.
Yeah, I think at this point, people have had plenty of opportunity to, at least express interest and say, we need help filling it out or something. So my inclination would be to just, finish with these ones and move on to other projects for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I agree, especially, when you look at the timing. I mean, just trying to get the contract, spend the money, and have the project, get the contractors or whatever you need to do to spend the money and wrap up the contract. So I'm okay too with just not doing another round. Randy?
Yes, Darby, did this did this fund the skate park in Enfield? Did we fund that through this? Okay.
Yes.
I walked through that yesterday. It's really going to be a cool little skate park. So they're about half done, I think. Yep.
Randy, are you going to take up skateboarding?
Although
No.
my dad made me and my brother skateboard when we were in the 60s out of plywood and roller skates.
Roller skates.
It's in the Olympics now. You could practice up for 2028.
Master's level.
Look for updates here on this channel at this site. All right, thank you very much, Darby. Anything else that you have while you're here?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And next up, we have Haley Delisle. We have, you have a presentation for us. This starts on, the presentation starts on packet page 31 in your agenda. And then there's a resolution on packet page 33. But why don't we do the presentation before we do the resolution, if that sounds okay to the committee? Okay. Take it away, Haley.
All right. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm so excited to be here talking about this plan today. So it's called Navigating Electrical Outages, Proactive Steps for Today and Tomorrow's Electrified World. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the background, what the main objectives that came to light are. I'll give you some context. We'll go over the actions, and then I'll have some time for questions. So the main question that is driving this report is, when we talk about electrification and electric vehicles or moving to heat pumps, the main question that comes up is what happens when the electric grid goes down and we're relying on electricity more than ever. And so we're hoping to answer some of those questions, but then also provide some solutions that we as a county can take to help mitigate that. Some background is that we interviewed over 30 professionals locally, at the state level, and then also nationally to kind of get insight on just the state of outages and electrification trends, and then maybe some solutions that were out there to help with resiliency. And through those conversations, two objectives really came to the forefront. And so that's one, preparing for electric grid outages now and in the future with an anticipation of increased reliance on the grid because of electrification. And so just electrification being the process of transitioning from fossil fuel-powered appliances for heating and cooling and transportation to electric-powered ones. And then the second objective is work to reduce the frequency of grid outages. And so just to get some background, we wanted to look at some of those trends towards increased electrification. And so on the tech side, we've seen major improvements. And I mean, all of us at this table have seen at the county, we use electric vehicles every day. And so that's not something that was even happening 10 years ago. And so just the tech is way more widely available and accessible. And then moving to the policy side, we're lucky to live or work in an area that cares about greenhouse gas emissions and has the political will to put policies in place. And so there are aggressive goals, not only here in Toppins County, but also at the state and federal level. So there's kind of this trend of this technology being implemented more and more. And so let's, now we can take a look at in numbers some of those trends. And so this chart shows the number of battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles in Tompkins County from 2013 to 2023. And so you can see, I mean, there's been a steady increase over the past 10 years of those vehicles being registered here in Tompkins County. On the heat pump side, it's a little bit harder to figure out the local impacts or the local trends because not all municipalities require permits for projects. Some projects just don't get them. But we did have a really successful Heat Smart campaign, so we know that there has been interest and there's been installations. But then also this graph here shows national data. And so you can see a steady increase in heat pump sales, and even so much so that in 2022 they actually surpassed gas furnace sales. And then on a state level, NYSERDA has reported that 29,500 heat pumps were installed in 2022 across New York State, and that represents a 37% growth over 2021. So definitely moving in the electrification direction. Next, we'll talk a little bit about the electric grid. And so we worked with NYSEG to get all of their outage data from 2020 to 2023, so we could understand the current situation for number of outages, the duration of those outages, and then the causes. And so here's a chart that shows for this 3-year period some of the #1 causes of outages. And so for the 3-year period we looked at, which is 1,095 days, there were a total of 2,236 outages. And so that averages to about 2 outages per day over the last 3 years. So there's definitely, this is something to be looking into and considering. And so I will note that we did clean up the data. So for the following combination of incident number, date, and circuit, only the longest outage was counted. So there were times where there would be multiple outages on circuits, but we just kind of pared that down. And two, I mean, there's some interesting trends here. Vegetation interference is really the #1 reason of outages. And so I just will call you to kind of remember this figure for when I get into the actions later on. Next, we wanted to understand the duration of outages, so how long were people without power. And so you can see here, like, these are just some basic stats of the minimum, average, and maximum. So the least amount was 0.17 hours of an outage, with the maximum being 14.71 hours, and then about that average coming in at 3.33 hours. Okay, and then as we were kind of looking at all of this information, kind of zoomed out, a couple of categories came into focus. And so we worked to develop some actions that will fit into both of these categories, but the first is local actions to reduce the impact of outages on community members, and then the second, local actions to reduce the likelihood of outages occurring. And so it was really important to me, and I thank everyone who helped on this plan, that this plan gets put into action, and there are some steps that we can take to move forward to kind of help with this issue. So now we'll delve into some of those. So I will caution this isn't an exhaustive list. I would really encourage you to read the actions in the packet, so that the plan starts on packet page 41, I believe, and then the actions start on page 10 of the plan. But I'll just go over a few of them here. So First, we have established resilience hubs. So we, looked at what's offered here in the county, and there seems like there could be a need for resilience hubs in our rural communities. And so when talking to Erie County, they had talked about a program that they're hoping to implement where they are using libraries in rural communities to establish them as resilience hubs. We expanded that in our plan to consider fire stations or community buildings, and just kind of dig in a little bit more there. We also listed mobile electric power banks. So having Cornell had said that they had developed one that they use up on their campus, where it's basically a power bank that is able to be charged by solar. It's movable, so it can be deployed during an emergency. So we listed out looking more into that. Something that kept coming up as you were looking at the differences between a fossil fuel system and a heat pump system, and this could be at your home or office or what have you, is that backup systems, so generators, do need to be sized either larger to be able to accommodate for a heat pump system, but also there is some ways to right size your system so that you're, maybe you don't need your kitchen light to be like on the circuit during an emergency, but maybe you just want your common area. So really thinking about different ways to right size backup systems. And then we thought of a few different educational campaigns between this grouping and the next. But here, education for how to prepare for outages. We don't really see too much information going out for folks who have electrified, what they should be doing in advance of an emergency. So you'll often see fill your car up with gas, or make sure you have gas for your generator, et cetera. And so there are some things that we could be doing for our folks in the community who have electrified, such as charge your vehicle or different things there. So we're just highlighting that. I also think another action that came up that could be helpful is developing criteria to identify optimal places for microgrids or thermal energy network locations. And so this would just be almost like a guide for what would be needed for an optimal site, and then maybe looking for locations around the county that would make sense. In talking with the city of Boulder, they had a situation where they were able to use some of their electrified assets that they had as a city to help them during an emergency. And so Tompkins County, we have a lot of electrification assets, but really doing an inventory of those, and then also thinking through do they have another purpose that they could serve? So we have a couple Ford F-150s. Those can be used to bi-directionally charge, so it could be used during an emergency to help power something in the community or in the county. And so just making a list of those assets and then doing some trial and error to test it in advance of an emergency. And then another really popular thing that we had heard about when we were interviewing folks was the need for communication during an emergency, and how getting people the most up-to-date information quickly. And so something that we thought of was a network of emergency phone charging stations, so that folks can always have their phone charged and access to the newest information. So this switches to the second category of actions, so local actions to reduce the likelihood of outages occurring. And so there's a lot of work that could be done here. And a lot of this, so I'll just call out Martha's comment about the utility. I think there's a lot of ways that we could not only work with the utility, but also put a little bit of pressure on them to be thinking about these kinds of things. So first would be to work with major energy consumers to help manage demand. So if we know we're going to be in a situation where demand's going to be high, like it's a 110-degree summer day and everybody's going to want to be using cooling, are there large energy users that could reduce their load so that we can prevent a brownout? And so, kind of identifying that ahead of time. Another thing would be to continue to participate in the NYSEG rate cases. So a little bit earlier in this presentation, I told you to remember that vegetation management stat and how that was 54% of the reason for outages over the last 3 years. In the NYSEG rate case this last time, vegetation management ended up only getting a 6-year trim cycle, where in most other utilities, it's a 5-year trim cycle. So there's a lot of ways that we can kind of leverage what we are learning and what we know and kind of put pressure on during those rate cases so that we can have, better reliability for Tompkins County residents. Similarly, when we were talking with some folks out in Colorado, they had developed almost like a consortium of all of the municipalities who are under the same utility, and they worked together to advocate for various things, but electrification improvements was one of them. And so basically they came together and sat in on their rate case and were able to push for some changes. So we were the only municipality who participated in this last rate case, and I think it wasn't as compelling for them to listen, but maybe if we got others in the state to also participate, that could be a little bit more compelling. Next is a best practice guide for electrification technology installations. So understanding that as climate change progresses, we're expected to have more intense storms, more frequent storms, and so really taking into account the electrification equipment that we're putting in place and making sure that we're doing it in a way that will allow it to be utilized during those storms and not get damaged in like a flood or what have you. Next is incorporate this plan into our hazard mitigation plan. So that the county does a hazard mitigation plan. I forget the cycle, but it's every few years. And so working to have this be one of the components of that, and also meeting with the hazard mitigation partners. So it's something that they're thinking about. And then lastly here is the education campaigns to manage demand at a residential level. So there's a lot of different technology solutions that can be implemented to help, or to have just regular residents participate in demand management. So folks can opt in. There's some campaigns out there where folks could opt in to have a smart thermostat, and if the utility sees that there's going to be a high demand, they might increase your temperature up 2 degrees or vice versa, depending. And so there's some different programs there that residents could participate in. And so that's all that I have here. I can take any questions, and then we do have a resolution that's presented before you to accept this plan. And so happy to take any questions about that or anything you have.
All right, why don't we start with questions or comments from the committee? Amanda?
Great, thank you. This is amazing stuff, good work. I really appreciate all of this information. I have to note that on packet page 52, there is a legislator on there, and I'm just wondering how much you bribed them to get into the official report. That's not really fair.
We don't have time for that question, but we do have time for other questions if anybody has any. And it's a non-county car too there.
Oh, jeez. No, but seriously, I have some questions about the resolution, but I can hold off on that for a minute. I guess I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about what is a resiliency hub? Like what is that? I mean, I can guess what that is, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing is that there are a lot of different like shelters or I forget what the other word, like cooling or heating centers or different things where you can go and get services. But the main thing is that those resilience hubs would be able to function during an outage. So they would have some type of redundancy built in so that it's still available. And so that's kind of the distinction there.
So people could go there for whatever, food, water, power, okay. That makes sense. And then I guess you may not have the answer to this, but I think the vegetation interference number is very interesting. It just seems like a lot. And I'm wondering if that isn't much more related to weather. Like if a weather event happens, that's when a tree is going to fall on a line. It's hard for me to imagine that many trees are, you know, falling over to hit a line.
I mean, I will say that we did bin these outages. So NYSEG does have a pretty extensive list of like what causes interference. And so all of the ones that are in the vegetation interference were not weather related because there's a separate weather category.
I think the weather category is more like lightning strikes.
Oh, okay.
And then the vegetation interference could be like from a lot of it's like limbs falling onto lines and things like that.
Right.
Well, and I would just add that I think, you know, vegetative management was one of the big issues during the last rate case, as NYSEG got really dinged on that by their regulators. So this is looking back. So hopefully moving forward, it'll be a much lower number.
Yeah, if I could interject in the vegetation part, if they erred on the side of saying it's vegetation versus it's a windy day, and that's when the limb hit the line, or I'm glad for that because that's something we can do something about, or they can presumably do something about. I know switching from 5 years to 6 years is atrocious, I will say, in my view, because we already had so many issues because of vegetation. And now instead of a 5-year cycle where they're going down your street, they're switching it to 6 years?
No, so they didn't have a cycle. That was been one of the biggest issues, is that they didn't have a cycle in place at all. They were just kind of doing it ad hoc, and they asked to be put onto a cycle, and they were approved for a 6-year cycle. And the county in the last rate case strongly encouraged the Public Service Commission to put them on a 5-year cycle to be in line with all the other utilities. And that's something that I think in the next rate case, we'll have a conversation with the legislature. I think that's another thing that we should advocate for once again, is to ask them to be put onto a 5-year cycle.
Okay, so they didn't have a cycle before. Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Those are my questions, but yeah, I do want to talk about the resolution when that time comes.
Okay. Randy?
Yeah, thank you. Very complicated issues, so thank you for working on it. A few questions, and maybe you won't know the answers to these. Is there any data on the actual electrical load in Tompkins County? Has it changed in time? For example, LED lights are producing a lot less. Any data on that? I mean, and the reason I'm asking that is because how is that data in place for how much we need to increase our infrastructure, for example?
So, go ahead.
Well, I would just say we should have good information on that, because next year we'll be updating our greenhouse gas emissions inventory. And so we'll be able to look back over time what our electricity use and energy use is. But do you have a different answer?
No, I was just going to say that I know that data exists, but we didn't really review it for this plan. And
then you would build in the potential for additional electrification, just what your demand would be for infrastructure. Okay. One of the things that I think that's really missing for the county and people is the best way to reduce greenhouse gases to reduce consumption. So as I look around, I see all these lights on, and I just know we don't need them all. So I mean, it's you're pulling. I mean, that's the best way to not do greenhouse gases, to not use it. So I think it's just an example. And I've seen it other places as well. I'm always turning the lights off at my house. And my wife's always turning them on. So it's a challenge, so I get it. One thing is all the schools, I believe all of them, have extensive generator systems. And so they could be, obviously they're large buildings, that they could be another hub of if a real emergency took place. And I appreciate you looking at the demand issue, because that really is an important issue, so I just wanted to state that.
I just want to say, like, on that school issue, I think you're right. There's the backup generation. What we did see, you know, in that heat spell that we had a few weeks ago was schools closing because they couldn't keep up with their heating, or I guess in this case, their cooling systems couldn't keep up with those increased heat, you know, and some of the dangers there. And so I think that that's another part of this report, is identifying some of those types of issues as well. It's okay, it would be great to have the school be this resiliency hub, but we need to make sure that in an emergency situation that their cooling system would be able to keep up with an added, you know, load of 200 more people in a room, creating that heat, that body heat. So that's just one of the other pieces, is, you know, it's not just identifying who has generator capacity, but it's, can they continue to generate even in these emergency situations that we might see.
Yeah, one of the things that came up is that the town doesn't have a strong enough system to back up their own water supply, so to operate the pumps. So how would you get water to people if you don't have the ability to pump the water? So that was something that came up recently. But
Martha, who's also a member of our case board, wanted to open it up to you if you had a comment or question.
Yeah, thanks so much, Annie. I know it's kind of not kosher exactly, because it's not public comment. I just really want to appreciate Haley's comment about the county being involved in the rate case. I know that was a big decision to sort of add that to the work plan for county staff. And it is a lot of work to be involved and to be a responsible and informed advocate with the rate negotiations. And I think we can see the benefits of it. I wonder whether this issue has been brought to NISAC and their Climate Action Committee, because it seems like something where every single county is in the same situation. That might be a great place to raise this as something where at a state level, resources to be involved in rate case negotiations could be shared, and, you know, each separate county doesn't have to necessarily bring in that kind of expertise and put that staff time in. But I think your point, Haley, about being one single county, you know, up against the big bad utility, there can be a lot stronger leverage, and NISAC would be a good place to raise this. So thanks very much.
Yeah, and I'll just say I think that's a good point, and that would definitely be like step one or step 2 or 3 when implementing that action.
Katie?
I just wanted to give a shout out to Dominic and Rob for creating our Word document into this really lovely report. It got a little hidden with the PowerPoint presentation coming first, but the report itself has great photos and graphics, and it takes what could be a very dry report and turns it into one that communicates much better. So I just wanted to thank them.
Yeah, yes, thanks to them, and thanks to all your staff. And Haley, I said to Haley before the meeting, this is really well put together. It's digestible. I can understand all kinds of parts. I didn't get glassy-eyed when I read it. So thank you. It really makes it usable. I had a couple of questions. A couple dozen? No, just a couple. Let's see. I guess I'll start off first. And I know some of the stuff that I'll be asking about, please just let me know, because I think some of it might come under the hazard mitigation plan.
Sure.
But it's all combined and overlaps in some ways. So I'll start out with, for instance, as you know, the town of Enfield recently had a power outage for several days. And so some of the issues that they dealt with, and as you might know, but at the end, I'll ask you now, if you could touch base with Stephanie Redmond, the town supervisor, if you haven't already, just to talk about what their folks dealt with in their community. But I know I heard back anecdotally from some of the residents there that they, for instance, like just say phone, using their cell phones. So their landlines, most people don't have landlines anymore. Or maybe if they do, it's related to internet. And there's a lot of parts in Enfield that they don't have good cell phone coverage because of the topography and towers and all that, as you know. And so they rely, if they have Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi is going to be hopefully filled in, so internet is going to be filled in some of the areas there. But so if they're relying on Wi-Fi calling, then the electricity's out, they don't have any cell phone service. Mm-hmm. And so for them to notify through the siren, service or through emails to try and let their residents know, hey, you can come here for this, or like after 2 days, like Martha had mentioned, like what's NYSEG's responsibility? I know after 2 days, NYSEG sent in water and dry ice. Well, at that point, how do you notify people? Right. And the dry ice, after 2 days, people's refrigerators and freezers, all the food was spoiled. So dry ice at 2 days maybe could help you save something new that you had bought. But after 2 days, all your food was spoiled. And so that was, I don't know if that's a question or a comment, but just that's part of the complexity.
I mean, I think part of what I would say is that when we were talking about resilience hubs, and we reached out to Erie County specifically because of the winter storm they had a couple of years ago. But one thing I believe they said, and I could be mixing this with a communication piece, is that really those resilience hubs could have various forms of communication. And so if folks know that their resilience hub in their community is their resource, there could be like print materials or like a speech or whatever. And so all of that could kind of be figured out in some type of resilience hub plan. And so folks would know where they could get the most up-to-date information if they don't have Wi-Fi calling or what have you.
Yeah, I can see that as a big educational piece to the community. So then it's not just trying to figure out how to reach them then. It's like, I'm using Enfield as an example because of what just happened. Then folks are going to know, hopefully, I don't have to get notified. I know I can go get dry ice, or I know because my electricity's out, my well isn't working, I can go there to get water. I can go get information, and things like that. So I think that's going to be a bigger piece about the resilience hubs. And so in the outages, they said the longest outage we had for 2023 was only 14 hours and 14.71 hours.
Yeah, between 2020 to 2023. Do you know of longer outages?
I have a battery bank. Well, just thinking of like paring it down. So I've like done that for my house because we get a lot of outages. I'm at the end of a line, a lot of vegetative issues. So I have one battery bank, and just thinking about like different resources you have in your community or at your house, people need to think about that. So I have a new electric mower, and one of the reasons I got it is because you could get this like hub to put the batteries in to then use it to put it in an inverter, so I can use that and bring it in my house. So I know, and maybe it was 2024, I don't know, but there was at least 24 hours where I was using that to keep my refrigerator going.
Wow.
But again, maybe that was 2024, I'm not sure. But we know we've had longer power outages so far this year even. So just thinking about that. But I think also it's going to helping people, teach people to figure out, like you said, the resources in their house. Like I thought, oh, I got to keep my sump pumps going. Actually, even in really bad storms, for 10 hours, my sump pumps are okay. It's my refrigerator. And then I got a smaller battery bank to keep the internet going so we can work. And it's figuring out for your house what you need and what's going to work when you're there, and then what do you have when you're not there. So that's, let's see what other questions I had. So you were talking about I don't know what you, can't remember what you call them, but the assets that you have in your community, such as electric buses, electric trucks, and things like that. And when we had the remnants of the storm Debbie coming through, I forgot to charge my car. I did all these other things. I made sure that, so we kind of got to have like in my own house, I'm thinking in a written plan, here's the 5 things you do to prepare. And, I was thinking, because I wouldn't have been able to charge, I could keep my refrigerator going, but if I can't drive my car, that's a whole another thing.
You're speaking my language, Annie.
Yeah, and just thinking about what you said of like, what do you need to keep your house? Like for my house, I could probably be okay without the geothermal heating and air conditioning, which uses a lot of electricity because I have a wood stove. But for each house and each business, it's going to be challenging to figure that out. And I just want to say something. The number of outages, 1,200 outages. So how do they define? You said you help pare down the data. So how do they define an outage? It's not the lights flickering a little bit on and off. That's one outage. If it goes out and then comes back on and goes out again.
That's a good question. I don't know their exact outage definition. I don't know, Terry, I see you reaching for your mic.
Yeah. And is it like per person too? Is it how many people define an outage?
So the data that they sent us was this huge Excel file that was incredibly complicated.
Not usable, yeah.
It was usable with a lot of tweaking, and so I think, Haley referenced binning earlier. This was something that we talked about where you would see sometimes outages that would be occurring at the same time on the same circuit, but they'd be affecting different locations. And so it was understanding how to manipulate the data so that it was in a usable format. So we can try and look specifically, we can try and go back to that Excel and see exactly what it was. But I think the way we ended up binning it was to try and make it the most comprehensive so that we weren't double counting and making it seem super inflated.
But each outage, so for instance, of the 1,210 outages, I'm sorry, that's just the vegetative one. So 2,236 outages in 3 years. Anyway, that's more than one per day.
Yeah.
And could that be then one person is out? That would count as an outage then? And would a cluster be one outage, or right? Because this can't be per person.
I think in the
residence.
Excel, it would tell us how many people were affected, right?
Yeah. So this is. Let me just read exactly. So it's for each of the ones that we have listed here. There's an incident number that is associated with that outage. So we just included the one incident number plus the date and the circuit. And so there might be multiple outages that fit that quality, but we just picked the longest outage of that data, so that it wouldn't be super inflated. So like one circuit could have had multiple outages on one day, but we just picked the longest one.
And when you're talking about hubs and all the other actions, the many actions, but is this something you can go back in and do locations to,
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
and again, using Enfield as an example, is that something you can go and say, oh, Enfield has the longest outages, they might not have the most, or they are having the most, and also they have people on wells, or there's no backup, and so is that something you could use to extract more data to help with that?
We do have it location-based, so it's, it is available, and so we could take that into account in future planning.
Yeah, so that, I would imagine that municipalities would find that useful. I don't know if you can break it down to that level at some point.
I would just toss in here, I'm not sure we actually probably would go back to that data set. It's a big, cumbersome, messy data set. We probably would work on, you know, identifying locations in rural areas and then work with our partners at NYSEG to discuss the pros and cons of putting something in that location, and then they can look more closely at their own data and pull up the 2024 data, which we know is pretty significant, and advise us on best approaches.
Okay, thank you. And so do you know, by chance, is NYSEG required to do anything? I mean, I heard they sent in, for instance, in Enfield, water and dry ice. Are they required to do anything like that?
I believe they are. I don't know the exact regulations of when things kick in. It's something.
I think you get into the Mike Steitley doer arena at that point.
So to check with them if they know what is required for a long outage? Okay. Thank you. Ready to go to the resolution? Okay. That's packet page 33. And this is a resolution accepting the plan, navigating electrical outages, proactive steps for today and tomorrow's electrified world. Would someone like to move that? Amanda, seconded by Veronica. Sorry if I didn't get the right order there. And so first off, I'm going to ask Brittany to explain, because it says accepting the plan, to explain what accepting means.
So when you vote to accept a plan, you are acknowledging and thanking them for the work done, but not committing yourself to any of the actions within the plan. If you adopt it, you commit yourself to it.
Okay, thank you. All righty. So I'll open up for discussion on the resolution, and Amanda has something.
Yeah, I found much of the language in the middle whereases to be confusing. And honestly, I found like the memo to have better language. And I guess I would, like, instead of trying to wordsmith several whereases, I had a couple suggestions to strike and then to add a different one if I can make an amendment. Can I do that?
Sure, you can propose an amendment.
Okay, I would propose cutting, let's see, that's the fourth whereas, the fifth, and the sixth whereas. So whereas many residents and businesses, blah, blah, blah. And then whereas the scale of the problem is exacerbated by, and whereas the change in transportation is a starker difference. So I would propose cutting those. And then either there or a little bit later, adding a whereas that comes from somewhere in here. I just took the language. Whereas one of the greatest criticisms of electrification is what people will do when the grid goes down and they rely on electricity for heating, cooling, and transportation. I think that's actually on page 33 in the middle of the memo. That seemed to make more sense to me. Read that again, or?
In a second, but let me just ask you, it sounds looks like you're possibly taking those, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you said the 4th, 5th, and 6th, you're proposing to take those out, and then you're proposing adding another whereas. That sounds like it's summarizing those together?
That was my thought, yeah.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and read the one again that you're going to add, proposing to add back in?
Which is also just on packet page 33, the middle paragraph is what I took out. Whereas one of the greatest criticisms of electrification is what people will do when the grid goes down and they rely on electricity for heating, cooling, and transportation.
Okay, do we have a second for that? Randy seconds that.
Including the taking out those 3? Okay. Okay.
All right, any discussion on that? I'm going to put you on the spot, Haley. Is that?
That works with me. I think that still gets the main message across.
Okay, any other discussion? So I guess we'll ask, is that friendly first?
Friendly to me.
Okay, anybody object? Okay, that's
great.
That's added to the resolution. Thank you.
And then I had one other change to make it a little more clear. So in the, second to last whereas, whereas the plan navigating electrical outages, the title, outlines specific actions, and I would also just take some of the other language and that would say instead, outline specific actions to reduce the impact and reduce the likelihood of. Or some, wait.
Can you?
There was I was just taking the titles. Actions to reduce the impacts of outages and actions to reduce the likelihood of outages.
And what would you take out in that whereas? Would you start the whereas all over again? Or
same beginning. Sorry, let me read it through here. The plan navigating electrical outages, ... outlines specific actions to reduce the impact of outages and reduce the likelihood of outages in Tompkins County. Yeah. Yeah. Electrical outages. What, Brittany?
And then you would take out, so after Tompkins County, you would take out can take to improve resiliency in an increasingly electrified future?
No, I feel like that could actually stay in. So actions.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Would you consider adding what you want to add? Let's see. In the second sentence, outline specific actions Tompkins County can take to improve resiliency, such as, and sticking those
actions to reduce the impact.
Such as that.
Sure, if that makes it more clear. I was just trying to be more specific about the actions that, like, if we're saying the problem is that the grid can go down, this plan is providing actions to reduce that problem. So, sorry if my wording isn't clear.
Can I read how I might think it? Okay. Whereas the plan navigating electrical outages, proactive steps for today and tomorrow's electrified world outlines specific actions Tompkins County can take to improve resiliency in an increasingly electrified future, to reduce the impact of outages and reduce the likelihood of outages in Tompkins County. And,
Okay, that works for me, if everyone got that.
Okay, that's friendly.
Okay. Just trying to take some of the language that was already in the plan. So I think that's all I have, and thank you.
The added.
Good to have a writer on board here.
Sorry.
Sorry.
The added whereas, Amanda,
Yeah.
did you want that in place of where 4, 5, and 6 came out? I think it makes the most sense there.
Yeah, because
Okay.
it's related kind of in response to the idea of climate change, so.
Right, and it summarizes those 3.
Yeah,
Okay, yep.
Okay.
thank you.
All right, we're still good? All right, any other comments, questions on the resolution? Randy?
I don't want to change anything, but I'm reading this one, so I did some research. So it's whereas impacts from climate change and electric grid are already being experienced, blah, blah, blah. So I went online to find out, the data on storms. I was surprised how much data is out there on it and how conflicting it is. How this one says this one says that. Some's from the National Weather Service, some's from New York State. It was really interesting, but one of the things and so I don't want to change it, I did notice is that the winter storms have dropped quite a bit over years, so I just wanted to share that. But rainstorms would not have gone up, so it's really interesting they did all agree with that, so. But.
Yes, we are experiencing climate change. Yes.
Since I was a kid, so.
Me too. Any other comments, questions, observations? All righty, all those in favor of the resolution? That passes unanimously. Thank you so much. And Haley, again, thank you for this comprehensive, easily digestible report, and we look forward to how we can support this going forward at the legislature, at the committee, and in our communities. Randy?
Just a planning question. So Katie and I exchanged some emails on broadband on Millard Hill Road, and how some houses are not able to get to the broadband, even though it goes down the main road. And so I spoke to Mr. Bartosh about that, and he said, yeah, you're right. It can't get to that side of the road. It's Eleanor Way and those areas, fairly new development. I think there's 12 homes there. He said the gas line was, all these sorts of things were the issue. And he said it would cost $18,000 to go under the road. So I spoke to the highway department, and they said, yeah, they'll issue permit, and there's no cost for their permit, but somebody still has to do the work. So he mentioned, Mr. Bartosh mentioned that he's waiting for a state grant for that. And I didn't know if you'd heard anything about this or.
A state grant to,
He said they applied for a state grant specifically for them to go on the road in more than one location. Apparently there's a few locations that they need to go under the road, or it's expensive, I guess, for whatever they want to do. This one was $18,000 for this particular one, and claimed that they didn't have the funding for it, so they're looking to the state for funding for it.
I don't know if that was included in the county partnership grant that we put in. I would think not, but I'm not sure about that, because he said fiber already goes by the houses, it's just the distance and the location to get under a road and other pipes to get there?
He said it needs to go under the road, specifically, and it's a big expense for them, and that wasn't funding they received. That he had applied for that funding from the state and was supposed to find out fairly soon, but I just wanted to share that with you. So.
Yeah, I mean, that might be included in the grant then, because his entity is our partner in that work, and he hasn't mentioned any other grant that he has applied for, and we are waiting any day to hear more from the state. So
maybe it's in that.
It might be in that. Yeah,
okay.
That'd be great if it was. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm wondering about, as this resolution that we just passed goes to the legislature, does it make sense to do maybe some type of presentation to the legislature, or maybe a shorter one, or I don't know?
We usually leave that up to, if legislators want to invite us to do that, we're happy to do so. I do understand from the chair that it's tough to get spots for presentations. You guys have a lot going on, so we're more than happy to give a presentation if that is what you want.
I'm just thinking, because this is a whole new plan that we haven't done before. What do folks think? Do we want to advocate for that?
Maybe after the budget season?
Well, this resolution is going to go to the
Okay.
legislature. What do you think, Amanda?
I would, if it's hard to get a spot, I would just tell people to come back and watch this committee meeting, because that was a pretty thorough presentation, and we had lots of questions, so I feel like.
I can also provide them with the PowerPoint and the packet that was in the agenda packet prior to the meeting on August 20th.
Okay, all of that information? Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
And if you could just attach the actual report as a separate attachment so that gets some attention, I think that would be really helpful, because it is fairly easy to read. To me, it's more important than the PowerPoint presentation.
That's true. Maybe just that, and they could go to, or they can go to here to see the presentation. Yeah. Yes, really well written.
I'll just say to that end that, I'm kind of in the face of this, but Katie, Terry, and Megan all put in a lot of work into that report as well, and we really appreciate Dominic prettying it up. So just to put that out there. And I'm not big on printing. I'm wondering if we should print them for the legislators. You can think about that. So it is optimized for digital use as well. There are clickable.
Oh, that's true. The link's in there, yeah.
There are clickable links. So.
Okay, let's have them do it electronically.
Got Leo shuddering over here.
We could cut down a tree on your way back to and have some more recycling, and okay, we'll do that electronically. Thanks for talking me down from the branch there. Okay, anything else from your department, from planning? Thank you so much. I'll open it up to any committee member reports.
Yeah, I reached out to the folks up at Dewar, and they said that she's pretty sure that within 72 hours, they have to provide dry ice and bottled water. And I sent you all a link from NICEAG's page as well.
Okay,
In response
so
to your question
NICEAG
earlier.
has to provide, it's just Thank you very much, Norma, for getting us that information so quickly. Any committee member reports? Randy?
Again, Katie, you and I met and we talked about Cornell Crop Extension a little bit. And then they are working on their beautification program, and they want to change kind of the way it looks. And so I recommended to them, if they showed me what they were thinking, to meet. They already meet with Nick and discuss it with that group. But the funding, they got additional funding, I guess, from that fund because of the hotel tax change. But I strongly recommended that they look at sharing with you what their plan is, not just with, and that would go through Nick, correct? Okay, so I just want to make sure that they did that. And they want to look at more urban things, more, they're struggling with volunteers like everybody else, and youth employment services, and that maybe even that beautification isn't just flowers. It could be, vegetables and fruits and other things that's, that may be in an urban area. So I just wanted to share that's what they're looking at, and that they'll be in touch with you folks.
Great. Anything else? Okay, I just want to let folks know, I heard back from Greg Mezey, so we are confirmed, I'm going to just read again our next, or not our next two, but October meeting. We're confirmed for October 15th, 11 to 1, and we are confirmed for November 14th, 12 to 2 for our next peak meetings. So thank you, everybody, and thank you, everybody, for all your comments and participation, and we are adjourned. Thank you.